So Peter and Diane, can you tell us about the process of HSC marking now that it has moved online from both the senior markers perspective and the markers perspective?
From the senior markers perspective, we arrive and some questions, responses are already online. So we meet together as a team, we look at the paper, we look at our criteria that we've been given from the examination committee, and then we just spend some time reading responses that have been uploaded already, just to have a look to see that the criteria works to start with, and that the criteria works for those questions that we might say are a little bit out of the box. So they aren't what you would normally expect, but a student has taken their response in a direction that's a little bit unusual. So where does that fit within terms of the criteria? Then the we find our benchmarks from that. So those marks that are just on the cusp of a mark range. So it could be a 13, a 12 and a 13. So we would get a benchmark for those. We annotate those. And then the chief examiner comes in, and he or she then looks at, well, how did you go? So we have a conversation around that. They will sign off then the criteria, and then that's set. That's what we work with. We then continue to get a package of practice responses together and test responses together based on that criteria. And then the next step is that the test marker comes in usually the next day, and they just spend time testing that criteria, making sure that it works, making sure that it works for a range of different types of responses that students may come up with, that the criteria then gives a range of valid responses, valid marks. So it's a very clear process. Then the marking team arrive.
So when we arrive, it's then we are given an opportunity to engage with the marking criteria so that we can get our heads around what it looks like and to start to get an idea of what we're looking for within responses. And we're given a range of the exemplar responses for the various mark ranges. So we get an opportunity to look at those and what's in those and where they fit within those mark ranges. And then from then we start practice marking. So it's then that we get a whole set of scripts that we start to go through and apply the marking criteria to those scripts that have already been marked. And we're we're trying to ascertain whether we're marking to fit within the mark range that script has been allocated. So it's really practicing to make sure that we're engaging with the marking criteria and to make sure that what we're looking for in those scripts is actually accurate for that mark range.
So can you then just clarify for me, Peter and Diane, about a common standard in the marking? Why do the practice marking?
The practice marking, I think, is really important. It ensures that the senior marker's understanding of the criteria is then understood in turn by each of the